Welcome to Leadership Beyond Burnout. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson, and this is the show for women leaders and emerging women leaders to help them to lead beyond burnout. Today's special guest is Dr. Alexandra McDermott. She's an award winning global leader, American research professor, attorney, published author, speaker, entrepreneur, business consultant, and coach. She's also known as a leadership and digital expert, and most recently for her work in Reframing Despair, going from stuck to unstoppable. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, how are you today? Thank you so much for being here. I am so eager to have a discussion with you. I know as we prepared, I was just amazed at your love for education. So I'm really curious, how did that start?
It's amazing. I kind of have found that every single time I wanted to learn something for myself, I thought, I wonder if there's a certificate for this or a degree for this. Even last year, as I was going through my own kind of big transformation, I looked up grief and researched grief. I'm like, I wonder if there's a certificate for grief. So it's just always been something, that I've looked at. And I really believe in the power of education. Obviously, I've been a professor for years. And so, there's always a thirst for learning, a thirst for knowing more. Every single evening, I have the Headway app. So I read every single evening as well. So I'm constantly trying to absorb more information. So it's always been a thing for me, probably since I was really, really young.
Okay. And now I'm not going to let what you said slip by. You said since your big transformation, so
Yes.
please share, what was the big transformation?
Well, and you had mentioned the book, so it's also obviously in the book, and it's detailed pretty significantly there. So I was married to my husband of 25 years, and so that was a big part of it. But I have an undiagnosed chronic medical condition that I've been fighting for several years. So last year was a big transformative year for me. So I found out that my husband was having an affair. And then my kids were going through serial crises as well. And I was fighting this, undiagnosed chronic medical condition. So every single time a crisis would come up, I'd put it down. Crisis would come up, I'd put it down. And it just seemed like, and that's where the despair piece came in. It just seemed like I was drowning. And then really this year I emerged from all of that. And then kind of really changed my career path, to be perfectly honest with you. That's why the coaching now. I was able to really come up through all of that, through a lot of grit and resilience, a ton of research, finding coping skills that worked for me and thinking, I can do this, right? I can help others. So that's why I've, started McDermott Leadership.
Okay. And I think it's really interesting that you said that you had to find your own coping skills, and for you, you found comfort in knowledge as well.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
I think you and my mother might be sisters, because if I
I love
mention
it.
anything, there will be books in the mail, tons of emails, and
Yes.
it's like I can't read all of this.
I love it.
She's a research professor at heart. She just never
Mm-hmm.
got the degree. Man. So what are some of those skills that really keep you resilient and helped you to emerge?
One of the key skills for me was the power of vision, right? So
Hmm.
knowing, for me, for so many years, I relied on and had sort of followed my ex, soon to be ex, around the country for his role. I have, all these degrees, but we at one point in our union had decided, okay, we're going to focus on his career. And so I would take sort of roles that were okay, but not really suited for my strengths and abilities. And so they were sort of, okay, like I said, okay, but
Sort of filler positions.
kind of. I mean, I was a trailing spouse, right? I mean, if there's, a label for it. And so again, we would go for his career and his career path and things like that, and I just never felt truly fulfilled. And so when the opportunity came and I was able to reframe the experience for myself, I went, wait a second, I'm now able to lead the life of my dreams on my terms. What does that look like for me? It's the first time in 25 years that I can do
Wow.
something for me, right? And I went, I love it, right? I can now kind of paint this amazing picture of what it looks like. And so I reframed, like I said, the whole situation and said, it's not a despair. It's actually pretty amazing. And what does that look like? And so I think the power of vision is huge. Reframing situations is huge. In any sort of crisis situation, and I had so many, taking the 24 hours to just process is a big deal, right? Because that's the fight or flight. That's really when you just need to take a beat and just, like I said, process. So, you have so much cortisol going through your system and things like that. So you just need to take a step back and just, give yourself an opportunity to just, cry, get mad, just, go through the emotions of the experience. But then for me, after 24 hours is over, that's when I show up and I say, okay, what more do I need? Do I need more information? So for me, I tend to go for the more information, right? So I do more research or I do more, information gathering or something like that. So, I have that 24-hour period where I can just be. And then, so that was a big deal for me. And it has been like that for many, many years, especially in crises.
So really just taking that pause to kind of reassess and rebuild. You said, like you said, create a whole new picture.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was reading through your bio, I noticed that you work with military as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that is something huge for military spouses, whether they're male or female, that really their career comes secondary. Did you use some of your strategies with them, or have you had the opportunity to?
Absolutely. So that's near and dear to me. So I work with American Public University System, and I have for, I think it's been like 8 or 9 years. It's something I'll never give up. And I love the university. They're amazing. And it's all asynchronous, but there is that incredible connectedness with the demographic, right? So these are students that are deployed. They have so many different experiences going on. And so some are military spouses, some are literally military members themselves, and they just need a different layer of support, right? So it doesn't mean it's less rigorous by any stretch of the imagination. It's actually pretty incredible because the curriculum is updated. They're 8-week classes. The curriculum is literally updated as it happens. So for example, I teach, a course that's focused on constitutional law. When the last constitutional law, case came down, I think it was in June, it was updated. We said something about it, and it happened on the spot. So, but the student population just may need a little extra layer of support. So, an understanding from professors. So, if I see a student that may not have checked in, I'll reach out to them and say, do you need something from me? Are you okay? What's going on? That kind of thing. And so you may not get that from another online university, but because I know that population so well and I've worked with them for so many years, I'm understanding of that, right? And so it like I said, it's so near and dear to me, and so I'll never give it up.
We're going to pause for a moment for a
Sure.
commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Greg Russell. I'm the host of TechnologyTuesday.com. You can find us on the Conscious Business TV network every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the latest resources to help you make more money in your business. Join us on E360 TV. Come on.
I was so happy that you said that the learning wasn't less rigorous, but that you need another level of understanding and support, because we're talking about Marine sailors or soldiers who are defending the country, who want to get an education, but they need to navigate those exercises and different things that come up, and you can't always put even possibly a deployment on hold to be able to do your classes.
Exactly. I mean, and that's so important for folks to understand. And like I said, I mean, I teach the classes, so I know how rigorous it is. It's really rigorous, right? So, I mean, like I said, I mean, I teach in the business school, so I teach MBA students, and I have a really high expectation, right, of APA standard, of what's, you know, what it looks like. And so, and I also taught at USC, so I actually, and I hope my students don't listen to this, right, but I actually have doctoral level standards for my MBA students, right? I can't shut it off, but, and they meet it. They're amazing. But it may mean that they need an extension, because literally they are deployed and they are serving our country, and that's okay. And that's granted. And I would have done the same thing for a USC student, right? But, you know, again, it may mean that, like, and I get a little nervous, to be honest with you, because if I don't hear from a student, you know, I go, okay, you know, is everything okay? Do you need support? So it's that sort of thing. And like you said, with military, you know, they're serving us, right? They're out there, you know, giving everything to us. And so I'm just thrilled that I'm in the position where I can support them.
Right. So when you have had spouses who had the same type of trailing career, as you called it, what type of accommodations did you or challenges did they have to meet in order to be a student?
It's exactly the same, right? And so, and I believe in equity. So if I give one student an extension, my policy is the same for everyone. So it doesn't mean if you're not in the military, you don't get it. So literally it's the same across the board. And I believe in equity generally. So I wouldn't treat anybody differently. So you know, my policy is, look, if you tell me, and it's kind of maybe a lawyerly policy, I guess, that I adopted, which is, you know, and I always send a welcome letter to students ahead of time. I say, look, I'm not a punitive grader. If you let me know that you need an extension before the assignment's due, automatically granted. You don't even have to tell me why. I don't even have to know why. I don't need proof. I'm a scholar of trust. So just tell me ahead of time, because you're at this level, you're an MBA student, you need to manage your time. It's an 8-week class. Don't get yourself in a hole. Right. And so it's really up to them. And by the way, I'm here to support you. So if something happens and you do end up kind of running into a time management crunch, reach out to me and I will support you. You know what I mean?
Right. So you kind of make sure that they don't burn themselves out, hoping, just trying to meet an arbitrary deadline, as long as it gets done, and they communicate well.
Exactly. And it's on them, right? Because at that level, if you're getting an advanced degree, they know better what their schedule is, right? As long as they've done the professional courtesy of seeking the extension ahead of time. It's when students don't, right, that there's a bit of a problem. But again, emergencies happen. I still don't say, hey, send me the doctor's whatever. I believe in trust, right? So, and I said, like I said, I'm a scholar of trust. We have a culture of trust in my classroom. So if you tell me something happened, I will 100% believe you.
Sort of innocent until proven guilty.
Exactly.
I love that. So when you look at all of the degrees that you have,
that's so funny.
Because you're also a nurse too, right?
No, not a nurse.
Okay, all right.
But it sounds interesting. Maybe I should look it up.
So which, do you have a favorite baby? Like trying to ask her mom, which is your favorite? Or do you love them all equally?
It's so funny. It's, you know what I tell my kids? So when my kids ask me, I have 6 kids, and they say, who do you love more? Who do you love more? And I said, I love you all the same, but for different reasons, right?
Ah, okay.
So there is something I got from each of my degrees, and that's the truth. And I even have certificates that I would name that I received something from each of those. And so my law degree taught me really the power of critical thinking. And so I highly advocate people get that, even if they don't practice law. It was an incredible degree. I loved my MFA from, my MFA experience.
And that's Master of Fine Arts, correct?
It is, in poetry and nonfiction. I had actually done my thesis. My mom had passed of pancreatic cancer, and I really wrote through her death. And so my whole thesis is really a dedication to her. And so I was able to process so many emotions through that. And so that has a special place as well. Right. And then, of course, my doctorate at USC, I ended up teaching for them. And I have so many incredible experiences. My best friends there, my dissertation chair, I'm really close with. And then again, I taught there for so many years. And that was an incredible degree experience, too. We went overseas to study educational systems, and I just learned a ton about education as well. And so, and again, I even have certificates, right? So I'm a certified dog trainer. It sounds random, but I love,
need you.
but I love dogs, and I would stop.
I saw, that's right. You volunteered, right?
And so I used to, when I was in college or even before then, I would stop and pet every dog. And I'm like, I have to know more about dogs, right? And like I told you, I'm like, instead of just learning about it on the internet, I have to go get a certificate. But I wanted to really get into that and understand it more from a training perspective and that deep understanding, not just sort of like reading about it. And so I got a certificate in dog training, right? And so, like I said, every single thing I've pursued really has a place and has special meaning to me.
Wow. And I think it was so powerful when you indicated that when your mom got the diagnosis that you went and got more knowledge. So it sounds as if that helps you create order out of disorder in taking these certificates and degrees, unless I have it completely wrong.
I think that's an amazing perspective. Yes. And that's a great way to frame it. Absolutely.
Okay. Wow. And so there's a strategy in and of itself to find order where you can, control what you can, and don't worry about what you can't. You just, wow, that is amazing. Now, where do you see yourself in the future in your coaching business and expansion of that role? Because I know it's very different. I love the classroom, right? But to see some of those theories, have you found that things show up as they do in the literature, or is it just completely the wild, wild west when you get out there?
It's interesting. Coaching people one-on-one is really different than being in the classroom, right? But even in the classroom, I would spend time with students one-on-one afterwards. And that's why I ended up opening a coaching business. But I talk to people every single day and coach them every single day as well. But the issues are really discrete, right? So it's sort of like, and it feels almost like a crisis, right? And so it's not as orderly as you would think it would be, right? And I sort of had in my mind, oh, well, tackle it like almost like a curriculum. Not at all, right? And so that is a little bit more surprising to me. But, since I can't sort of stay still, I'm opening, as you can tell, right? I'm opening a publishing company with a colleague, with a business partner. But because I discovered in publishing my own story, it got such a great response that the power of storytelling is so big that, through many conversations with a business colleague partner, she and I decided we're going to launch a publishing company. And so that'll be launched in the next few weeks because there is such a big power in storytelling. And so that'll become maybe even more of a main focus for me. And then even coaching people, because I have the MFA and a lot of other experience with writing, maybe even coaching people one-on-one on how to write their own full-length books as well.
Now, I'm going to ask for the ladies in the back because I'm listening to everything you're doing, all the degrees you have, the children you have, and does she sleep?
No, I don't. So I will. No,
Ah.
I don't. And that's the problem. And so if you have someone, no, but that really is, one of the sort of challenges I do have is I don't sleep enough. And so if there is a challenge, it is sort of the lack of sleep. Because I do have so much going on. And so as we talk about sort of burnout and that sort of thing, because there is a lot going on with kids and, finalizing the divorce and all the projects and things like that, it is hard to get yourself to a place where you can shut down, right? And stay down.
Did you just say still finalizing the divorce?
Yes.
I would love to see your calendar. I just for grins and giggles, because I'm trying to imagine coordinating all these pieces. How?
Some days I don't know.
Well, with that, we're going to take a brief commercial break and be right back.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy.
And I'm Gina.
We're the hosts of Chronically Healthy Life.
Join us Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time on Vitality TV to see how we flip the idea of chronic on its head and create chronic health in our bodies, minds, finances, and relationships right here on E360 TV.
Okay. So, I definitely love that you talked about these systems and these strategies, but it seems as if there's a crisis, you implement it, and then you start running again. Or do I misunderstand?
No, for sure. But I do have other sort of time management strategies too, right? So I kind of call it triaging though. So it's sort of a red, yellow, green, right? So my calendar does get filled up, but I will look at it every time before I go to sleep. And I'll say, okay, what is critical? Like, what's the red level that I have to get done tomorrow? And what can I push off? Like, what's yellow that maybe can get done? Because I don't want to look at my calendar and get stressed out for the next day. And I want to spend time with my twin girls and my sister, and I need to have downtime for me. So I make sure that's built in, because you cannot live up here, because we know, right, with cortisol, you can't live in a chronic state of stress. It's bad physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. A little bit of stress is a motivator. That level, not good for you. So every single night I look at my calendar and say, okay, what must be done? What can be pushed off? And what can I maybe sort of cast off? Like, is this a must do? Right? So I do that. And so it's kind of my red, yellow, green strategy. And I've used that, and I love sort of having everything in my digital calendar, and I've used that, and it's worked for me.
Oh, beautiful. I live by my phone calendar. If it's not there, it does not exist. And definitely building things into it. I'm much better with it now than I was before, because I noticed that I tended to be always the last thing on the list, and sometimes never on the to-do list. And that's not good at all. So this is a part of your nightly routine.
Absolutely. Every single night. Because I don't want to wake up and have the calendar be the first thing I look at, right? I want to do other things before, I definitely don't want to just start my morning with work, right? I want to do other things. I don't want to just go right into work, right? And I don't think that's a great thing for you. So I believe in journaling and gratitude and counting your blessings and all of that. I think that's really important for a positive mindset, right? So every night I definitely do the Headway app like I talked about. I count my blessings, I do my journaling, I do my gratitude as well. And so that's something I do every single night as well, but I don't jump into that in the morning, right? I take my time. I, just sort of try to relax in the morning. And so, it's not diving headfirst into work, right?
I don't think I had ever considered, because actually that is usually what I do first. I remind myself, like, okay, what do I have to do on the day? And then I'll start all of the meat stuff. And I had never really considered that I was actually starting work by looking at my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think I'm going to adopt that one. Thank you.
Absolutely. Because that kind of raises you up, right?
Right.
You're kind of like already ticking yourself up. And again, it's the cortisol thing, right? And you're already getting yourself sort of worked up. So instead, just sort of, make your tea, make your coffee, sort of get yourself together maybe, and just maybe look out the window, see the flowers, do whatever it is that you want to do. Take a deep breath, exercise, meditate. A lot of people like to do that. But, just do something else before diving right into work.
Right. Now, how old are your children? Just to give everyone some context as to, how you're doing all this and the demand on your time.
Absolutely. So I have a son that, even though my ex and I are getting a divorce, but I have a son that we're going to adopt, and he's an adult, and we're going to adopt him as an adult, and he's in his early 30s. I won't reveal his age, but and and then I have another son who's 22, and he actually has my first grandbaby as well.
Oh.
And so, yes, and then another son who's 20, and then a daughter who's 18, and then twins who are 10.
Okay. Now, do the adults need you more than the twins?
It's so funny. They have their own language, right? And so they're really funny. And so they live with me, and but they are pretty self-sufficient. And so, but so are my adult kids too, right?
Okay.
But they're different needs. So, everybody just sort of has different needs, but it's really fascinating because at specific times, it seems like 3 of them need something right at the same time. And I'm like, yeah, right. And they live at different parts of the country, right? So,
Right.
2 of my sons live in Georgia, 1 lives in Alabama, my daughter lives in California, and then the twins live with me here in California as well. So everybody's sort of spread out.
Right. So when your children have needs, and like you said, it happens sometimes, many of them at the same time, and you have these competing priorities going on, what do you do?
Who's, the most significant crisis at the time? Truly. And so my kids have sophisticated medical issues too. And so, bleeding disorder, asthma, epilepsy, those sorts of things. And so if it's something like that, that takes priority. If it's, a mental health crisis, that takes priority, those sorts of things. If it's school related, and so again, it's sort of, figuring that out, right? Finding out what is, categorizing the crisis, I guess, So
the same process you do at night, you just import that to
it's sort of a logical process, and I feel bad about saying that. Sorry, kids, because I know you're going to listen to this, but I'm like, you get categorized. My bad. But you know what I mean? It's sort of like, you have to sort of look at everything, throw it up there and say, okay, who's, high priority and who gets what, where, and because I'm only one person. And I think the challenge really when you're kind of managing crises, and I kind of once said, it's not parenting, it's crisis management, right? But in a way, sometimes it is how to fill your own bucket, right? And that was a challenge for me, last year, and the year before with sort of, my undiagnosed chronic medical condition. My son was having an issue, at the time as well. And I had to put some of my stuff on the back burner because he took priority, and so it's, trying to figure out, how to fill your own bucket, right? But that may be you have to calendar yourself in your own calendar. And I kid you not. I mean, I've done that before. I'm like, you know what? I need to put some me time in there. And so I'm going to put it in there. And if it's in my, G calendar, it happens. Right. And so it sounds silly to people, but, if it's in there, it happens. And so if it works for people, okay,
Absolutely. I follow the same thing because there's so many things that compete for our time and our energy. And if you don't make that space, it's just really difficult to get that in. It's like, okay, I'm going to keep this thing I need ever present. Like, I can't tell you how many of those things 2 or 3 days later it's like, oh yeah, I was supposed to do that. Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. Right. But I'm apologizing to me, right? Because I didn't pick up my medicine or I didn't do this.
Right.
So, absolutely. So tell us about this resource you have.
So power, is that what you're referring to, power?
Yes.
Yes. So part of the going from stuck to unstoppable is really looking at core areas where people often get stuck, right? And so purpose was one of the things that I really discovered. Only 25% of people really know their purpose, which was shocking to me when I did all the research and I looked at it. And I thought, if only 25% of people know their purpose, that means 75% don't. And we know from that purpose leads you to a more fulfilling and happy life. So if you don't know why you were put on this earth, it's you kind of, and that's what happened to me too. I kind of took different roles, kind of going from here or there. Oh, that looks good. That feels good. And not really sort of feeling fulfilled. And so the first area that's, I focus on is purpose. What are you meant to do? What makes you feel good? What kind of, helps you lose track of time, that sort of thing. And so again,
I love that, lose track of time, because when you do something you love, you do lose track of time.
Absolutely. But again, the data was shocking to me. I literally couldn't believe that only 25% of people really lived their purpose. So again, that's one of the focal areas. And then O stands for one of a kind. And that really is authentic leadership. So not living this duality. So when I was a professor at USC, I often would have conversations with my global leaders where they would say, you know what, I feel like I have to be someone at work and that's different from someone at home, and it was constant struggle, and so many people feel the same way. And so, really getting people to understand you don't have to do that anymore. You really, really don't. That duality, get rid of it, right? It's a struggle. It's stressful. It doesn't have to be. So again, that's one of a kind, authentic leadership. W stands for wellness and well-being, and much of what we've already talked about, right? So really that gratitude, journaling, a big piece of that. E stands for engagement, right? So how engaged are you both at work? We know from Gallup data, right, that only 33% of workers are engaged. And that's a big issue. I mean, that also goes to purpose, right? Are you living your purpose or not? But also, how engaged are you to changing your life, right? So, and really finding something different for yourself. How committed are you to changing your life? So people often will come and say, oh, I'm really thinking about this or that. I won't work with everybody. I'll say, okay, when you're ready, come and see me. Right? Because I can't do the heavy lifting for someone. I can talk to you, I can help you, I can send you resources, but when you're really committed and you're really ready to make the change, come talk to me and we will do it together, I promise, but I can't do the changing for you because it's very hard. I mean, you go through a lot of transformation, a lot of growth, and growth is not easy, right? And then R is resilience. A lot of people don't understand, that resilience can be taught. It can be learned. We knew from COVID how difficult it was and how people really need to find the way to bounce back quicker. Right. So there are coping skills for that, and people can do that. So that's what power is.
Oh, that's beautiful. So if they go follow that link, they'll be able to get something to really help them understand the power and not just what you explained, to actually implement it. Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Liz, we're going to take one more commercial break.
Hey everyone, this is Araya McGarry. I'm the host of Get Celebritized with Araya McGarry, right here Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Limelight Network, right here on E360 TV.
And welcome back. Now, is there something that you feel like really is, for lack of a better term, the wind beneath your wings that really keeps you going? Because you seem very mission and purpose driven.
I would say my kids, my family, I call them my herd, right? But really that, my love for them, their love for me, right? And just so that, I mean, and so when I talk to people and I try to get them to understand, the year I had, I can't explain it. And again, the year I had, and I look back and I think to myself, it's amazing where I was last year to where I am today. I couldn't use my hands. I couldn't use my feet. I had memory loss. I was stuttering, they were testing me for MS. There were so many
That's
things.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, there were so many things going on. I had 2 masses for which I was being seen at MD Anderson. Like, so many things were happening. And just like I said, multiple crises, just things that I just, look at that and then look at where I am today. And I truly am so happy. Right. And I owe it all to the support, the love of family, and like I said, the support and love. And I feel so blessed, just having the ability to focus on a positive mindset, a growth mindset, and again, like, that support was huge for me. So I would say the wind beneath my wings is constantly my herd, my kids, my dad, and my siblings, and just my friends. So that, I think that's so important. Community connectedness, is huge. Being able to share my message, like you're giving me this opportunity, is massive for me. Just giving people, sharing this message and letting people understand, you may feel like you're on an island, don't despair. Right. And so if I can help one person understand that, I feel more purposeful, right? So that she understands, you're not alone. Reach out to me. I've got you.
That can be powerful. The power of another person in that fight with you, so that you can continue on. I definitely remember we had dissertation sisters.
Right.
So there were 2. And I swear, I tell people that doctorate is peppered with tears. So sometimes when I'm growing, it's like I just want to cry, because it's like, I don't want to grow right now. Why do I have to do this?
Right.
But they were so critical to just being there and just listening to me blubber sometimes, and just and then I could just march on. I could just continue.
So true. That's so true. And it's so necessary, right? That connectedness, that community, right? So true.
Now, I'm really curious about how that connectedness, I wanted to travel back a little bit to when you were discussing leaders feeling like they have this duality, that they have to be one person at work and another person at home. And I think that pressure particularly applies to women. I know I've been in a lot of male-dominated industries, especially the military. Have you found that there are some industries that still want them to continue that duality? Like, we don't care who you are.
You know
This is
what?
our box.
I have, but I don't know if it's, one-on-one truly, and so it's hard to sort of say it's a blanket issue, right? And so I wouldn't just name an industry because I don't know, or if it's that individual's experience. And so I think it would be unfair to just sort of, this industry is, constantly keeping women down. And so I don't know, right? And so I
don't want you to say that.
Right. And I want to be really responsible about that. Right. So because I have these conversations with, global leaders all the time, and they say, this is my experience at X or Y company. And so I think it's so easy for people to say, well, X industry does this. And, I don't know that that's fair assessment because, for example, I worked as, an attorney for a very prestigious law firm, and they did everything they could to support women and, to have a women's forum. And I was one of the only, females, women in the office, but they did everything they could to accommodate me. And at the time, and I had great, male leaders, and there were no female partners in my office. And I'm still really in contact with one of the best bosses in the world. And, he was amazing. And so I had 3 kids under the age of 5 at the time. And he was incredible. I mean, he taught me just the most, incredible things, on how to litigate and all that kind of thing. And, so he was just so accommodating. At one point I said, I'm really struggling here. And he's like, okay, well then let's reduce your hours, right? Like, let's figure out a way to make this work. And so, at the time though, I mean, this was so many years ago, organizations weren't doing that. Law firms were not doing that. But he was innovative, and he was willing to say, you know what, we're going to do something here. And so, but, anyone from the outside would have been like, law firms are doing X, Y, or Z, but I think it depends on the person. And I think now what I would advocate women do is to say, look, what are your needs, right? Advocate for yourself. Have conversations with folks, in your organization, and say, this is what I need to make my life work. One of the reasons I became an entrepreneur at so many different times in my life is because I wanted to have more control over my schedule. I mean, that's the truth, right? I mean, and you're shaking your head. You're like, yep.
That is the number one.
Right. And so that's why I opened my own, tutoring business and that kind of thing. And so, and I have my own business now, and I'm still teaching and things like that. But, I think having that sort of control over your own sort of, schedule, and I work much longer now, right? Through the night sometimes and that kind of thing. But again, you're in control of what you need to get done, and your schedule, and where you need things to be, and that kind of thing. But you can still make it work at organizations, but you have to be your own advocate, and you have to be willing to be vocal as well, to express what it is you need to make it work. Right. And you'd be surprised. Don't make assumptions, right? Don't make assumptions that, oh, they're not going to do this or that, because back in the day, if I had done that, I would never have been accommodated. But he was amazing. He was truly amazing. And so if I had made assumptions, I would have struggled. I would have kept struggling, but he was incredible.
And I'm so glad that we are ended on this note, because I believe that you are absolutely right. And I kid you not, I just told someone this morning, they were saying, oh, this person is so, they're so disrespectful. They don't even have common courtesy. And I asked them what they did. I said, well, you have to realize that sometimes courtesy is dictated by people's morals, values, and what's the cultural norm. Maybe they don't know that because they did X, they should give you this, or they should do that. So being vocal is extremely critical. Thank you so much for that, because we don't know.
Absolutely. Great point.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing your insights about power and just talking about your incredible life. I mean, and the way that you process through crises. I think that's such an important framework, creating order out of disorder.
Thank you. It's been so much fun. It's been a great discussion. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson. Please be here next week, Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. And until next time, we shall see you then.